We're now joined by Chris Level, Double T. He's also the sideline reporter for Texas Tech football. Joins us on 365 Sports. So you do a show with Joey every week. He was on with you yesterday. And now that we're close to kick off the game Saturday night, everything that's going on, what's the mood? What do you get from Joey?
Yeah, he's excited. I think there's a lot going on with this game, obviously, with where he's come from and working at Baylor for so many previous years, so many mutual relationships there. And you could just tell there's a lot of mutual respect between Coach Aranda and Coach McGuire and various members of the staff. But I think for Joey right now, there's a couple things. One, his team, won a big game last week, and I think it sets up a heck of an opportunity for them tomorrow night. And I think that he's genuinely excited about that. I think they're improving. I think he's got a quarterback right now that's kind of starting to figure things out, and they've figured out a way to put him in a position to where he's really kind of got it going. And so I think it's the opportunity that he's really excited about, and it's just kind of a interesting dynamic, obviously, that Coach Aranda and the Baylor Bears will be on the other sideline, and then you factor in the whole Pat Mahomes, scenario, which will be honored and all that stuff. But it should be fun. That's what you get into coaching for, is games like this. It should be a lot of fun.
It's already a great atmosphere. I don't know how many people in the Big 12 do it better than what probably Texas Tech does. Lubbock, Texas Tech fans. There's other places, Morgantown, and others can get lit up pretty well. But in Oklahoma State and Stillwater, it is already a place that gets lit up. Is this like triple whammy with Mahomes, night game, Baylor, and just the importance of the game?
Yeah, they're just starved around here. It's been a while. They haven't had the success that Baylor has had recently, and some of the other programs in the league, and what TCU is going through right now. They're starved to win and win consistently, and it's been a while since you've had a night game that was meaningful. I mean, I'm just being honest. And so that's part of what adds a layer to this too, is that it's been a bit. And I think, though, that this fan base is ready to kind of enjoy it and explode and have fun and all those things. But the football game aside, there's a lot of pomp and circumstance, obviously, with these college football Saturdays, whenever all the kind of things kind of work together, and you just kind of get lucky with the right kickoff time, and then you just so happen that you had announced months ago that Mahomes was going to be honored for this particular game and all those things. But yeah, that's what we all do, this stuff. It's the juice that you get from being in a stadium full of people like that are excited with something on the line.
Behrens Morton has been really good. I'm incredibly impressed. If anything, obviously he's got the tools, but also what appears to be mature beyond his years and what he has done. Has he even surprised you?
A little bit. He's a coach's kid. And I think Barron's biggest problem, really, since he's gotten here, it's Monday through Friday in practices and not being as consistent as he needs to be. But anytime I've ever seen him in a scrimmage situation, in a red and black game situation, whatever it is, the offense always moves down the field. That's just what he does. He just doesn't. But when you're trying to compete to win a job, you've got to do all those things to instill trust and confidence in the coach picking, who's going to play or not. But to answer your question, David, I think absolutely he's been impressive and impressed me. And you weren't sure how he was going to react to it. He's got this gamer quality to him, and coaches hate that. But that I mean, they do, because
yep.
I just want to know. I want to know what I'm going to get from a kid, and you could just see, though, that's just the way he's kind of wired, man. The lights come on, and he just kind of has it figured out. He's got a good knack for all of it.
Yeah, coaches want you to do all the other things every day, right? The tedious parts or the critical part, whether it's game film or meetings or the practice, the precision, the reps, and then yet, man, you want a guy that when the lights come on, he does it.
Yeah, and I think Barron is really done that. I think that Zach Kitley has really figured out the tempo part of it with Barron, because I think that's what Barron is really comfortable with. And now because I don't think they set out trying to go this fast before the season started or anything like that. But that's the way that I think Barron is most comfortable. And this is what he did in high school. He's good at it, and it's just kind of working right now. We'll see how much faster more night than what they have been.
Yeah, you mentioned Patrick Mahomes, and he had that monster, nearly 600-yard passing game against Baylor, and that was at AT&T Stadium back when they had the neutral site. But you look back at his time there. Did they waste? Don't get me wrong. People will lose their mind when I say that. Craig used to do his high school game, but did they waste the time when he was on campus without having that it factor, that team?
Yeah, because they just weren't good enough on defense. I think at times, because I will say offensively that it wasn't just Pat. I mean, there was Jakeem Grant, DeAndre Washington. I mean, there was a bunch of NFL players on that he was surrounded with, that offensive linemen, skill wise, all that. So it wasn't just Pat, but Pat was special. He's a generational talent, and they just weren't ever good enough on defense. So too many times when Pat would take the field, you feel like you've got to score 50 points to give yourself a chance to win, and that's no quarterback needs that kind of pressure. No quarterback, and I don't mind saying it. It was a bit of an era that was wasted, and you didn't squeeze enough out of it from a wins and loss standpoint, because people look at his college career and look at all the games that he won and lost, and it's like, man, he didn't win as much as I thought. And is that on him? Well, I would really put that just on that defensive side of the ball. They weren't consistent enough or good enough on that side.
I mentioned that Baylor game, but heck, the game that always stood out to me was that Oklahoma game, where he I don't know if he ever stopped completing passes, but all right, so the Texas Tech offense, we've discussed it with what Behrens Morton has done and Kitley, and obviously they've got something going. They don't have a star running back, but they have a couple of grinders. I mean, they run hard, hard. Oklahoma State kind of has the same type running backs in a way, in a combination. They seem like that they're not going to break one for 50 or 60, but they always pick up yardage. Is that what you see?
Yeah, with SaRodorick and Taj Brooks, neither one of them is going to be a threat to kind of take it to the house when they touch it. However, they do the dirty work. They do grind. They're strong. They're both extremely experienced. I mean, SaRodorick Thompson, he's on I think sixth in school history as far as touchdowns scored. So this is a guy that's been around here for a lot longer than people realize, and he finds a way to get into the end zone. And they can both catch it. They both are really good in pass pro. I mean, they're just really good college running backs. But they don't have that speed that maybe the next level is looking for. But the problem is you never know. Like if you're playing fantasy football in college, you wouldn't know which one to start, because they kind of rotate. You're not real sure which one's going to be hot on any given Saturday. Because last week it was Taj, and the week before that it was SaRodorick. So, but it's nice to have two of them for sure.
Didn't SaRodorick have the long? Was it like a little catch and run or something against Baylor back in 19 or whatever it was? I think he.
Yes, I believe he did.
Yeah, I mean, it was like 90 yards or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's got that in him. They're not going to run away from people, but they're good with angles and leverage and all those things. They're just not. I'm talking about like Bijan Robinson's speed,
right.
Vaughn's speed. Neither one possesses that.
All right, Chris, the defense, they do give up a lot. I mean, there's kind of sometimes a give and take when you have that offense. We've always heard whether it's complimentary, but my goodness, and I asked Joey this when I had a chance to visit with him on Sunday, the DNA of a team like his is to play with their hair on fire, whether they sometimes are in the right place or not, but my goodness, they play hard. Have they gotten any better?
I really do think they've gotten a lot better, and I think that as the season has gone along, they've improved as the weeks have gone on. They're really old. They're really good up front. They're really good on the back end. There's just not really a weakness with their defense, and they've had some moments this year against Kansas State where it just didn't look very good, but then they have moments where they start creating some takeaways and really will shut you down too. And West Virginia had no answer. I mean, Neil Brown was as mad as I've known Neil very well, and he was as upset with his offense as I had ever seen him after a game as a coordinator here or a head coach at West Virginia, because they just had no answers. They couldn't run it. You're intercepting 3 of JT Daniels' passes, and it was impressive. And I'm fascinated to see what this defense does against that front of Baylor and Richard Reese and company, because Baylor is going to be a handful. But that's really the matchup to me is ultimately going to decide this game, is how Texas Tech's front seven handles that Baylor offensive line and that running game and those counters and stretch zone and all that kind of stuff that Baylor will run. And that'll, because if Baylor has a lot of success, it could be a long night for Tech. But if Tech has some success there, I would like Tech's chances there.
I put down, and we have a prediction thread, that if this was the Baylor DNA from last year, not the players graduate, they move on in college, we get that, but if they still would pounding the ball like they used to punish people, they're still running the ball, but they punished you, and then of course the defense would punish you as well, it could take out not a crowd that's still a great crowd, but it could at least slow that down a little bit, maybe even soak the clock or suck the clock dry. I don't see that with them. They haven't really proven that. What do you see? And I'm not saying they can't win in Lubbock, but what do you see when you watch Baylor right now, when you've had a chance to?
Yeah, I see a team that's not as talented as they were last year, but I still see a really good team. And I just think that it really speaks to how tough the league is. This league is brutal, man. I mean, and we all talk about it. There are no gimmies, and I think fans at different places have gotten frustrated with their teams and all that. This is just a nightmare. I mean, every game, even Kansas, you guys saw it. You're up 28-3, and then look out. You're in the middle of a game in the second half. I mean, everybody is good. I don't know how many great teams there are, but Baylor is another good team, and they've got a lot of good big people, and that's what scares you most if you're Texas Tech. And really should everybody, is they're really good up front on both sides, and that's kind of their DNA right now, in my opinion, is they just try to punish you. But, they're missing some skill from last year on offense and some of that back end, special talent on defense. And that it's hard to replace those types of guys. But Aranda does it right. He was here for 2 or 3 years early in the Mike Leach's tenure. It's been fun to watch his rise in the coaching industry. But that's, and I would say, too, I still don't know if I know what I'm getting out of Blake Shapen. That's the one kind of unknown, because if he catches fire and really starts to be really consistent and avoids the turnovers, I mean, look out. But if he kind of still is throwing it to the other team and is loose with the ball a little bit, then it's a concern for the Bears for sure.
Chris, last thing. There is the conversation here. Baylor had high hopes for this year because of what last year was like, and they had so much back on the lines on either side. But now you look up, they're 4-3. And there's a lot of discussion, and it's what fans do and also what we do, that if, in fact, they don't win in Lubbock, how are they going to find 2 other wins? Because by the time you think you're about to write off Oklahoma, then obviously they seem to turn the corner. And they still have TCU, and they have Texas, and they have Kansas State. Is there any of that talk in Lubbock about where they are at 4-3 if, in fact, they don't win a home game, and then you start wondering about, do they have to scratch and claw to get to a bowl game? Although it seems like the back end of their schedule is a little bit more favorable.
Yeah, David. I think this game kind of keeps you in the conference race. Whereas if you lose this game, you're more more or less you're out of it. And I think the expectations weren't near as high around here, so it was probably different conversations because you're trying to get to a bowl game and trying to kind of keep your program pointing up and like trending up and improving and keeping people engaged and excited and showing people there's a future here. They haven't reached the mountaintop like Baylor did last year, and so the conversations are probably a bit different. However, if you're Texas Tech and you lose this game and you go to Fort Worth next week, I mean, you go from 4-3, you could be 4-5 in the blink of an eye, and that's the reality of this league. So that's why this game is so important, because there's been some of those conversations up here. Absolutely.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time. Chris Lovell, sideline reporter for Texas Tech. He knows the Red Raiders, and we appreciate his time on 365 Sports.